China took 30 years of painful lessons to understand one thing. If a nation wants to move forward, the pipeline of human mobility must be cleared, not clogged. Everyone, my name is Chris Ma. Today we gather here at the Hamilton Grange National Memorial to remember a great statesman, a system builder, and an immigrant. I am also an immigrant. So today I want to talk about immigration policies. I want to look at the past, present, and the future of immigration systems in two countries, China and the United States. First, let me tell you a story from my own life. As everyone knows, over the past 30 years, China went through incredible industrialization and urbanization. In the 1990s, China's urbanization rate was only 26%. By the end of 2025, that number became 68%. During this time, more than 650 million people moved from the countryside into the cities. But this great immigration movement did not come without a price, and it faced a lot of resistance. I was lucky enough to be born in a big city. Because of that, I saw with my own eyes crowds of migrant workers carrying huge bags, dragging their families along as they came into the cities. I also saw the strange, cold looks that city people gave them. Back then, city people hated those workers for three main reasons. First, cultural barriers. Second, taking public resources and stealing job opportunities. Third, crime. First, the cultural barrier. China is a huge country with many ethnic groups. Even though we have only one official language, different places have their own dialects and cultures. More than once, I heard people around me say, "We can't understand a word those people say." They gather in crowds and shout loudly. They even squat on the curbs just to eat a meal. They do not fit into our modern city lifestyle at all. Second, the fear of losing resources. Those migrant workers also had kids who needed schools. Workers themselves could get sick and need doctors and medical attention. And they need to find jobs to make money to support their families and send cash back to their villages. So back then, the shortage of healthcare, education, and jobs was a real fact. The logic of city people were very simple and brutal. The education and healthcare cake is only so big. If they take a bite, our children get less. On top of that, they send their paycheck money back to the countryside. Isn't that stealing money from our city? Third, the anxiety over crime and safety. Henan province, one of China's main source of migrant workers, suffered from terrible regional discrimination. I have heard dozens of bad jokes about Henan people stealing manhole covers. And whenever a worse crime happened, like a robbery, rape, or even murder, city people would always automatically blame the outside migrant workers. To protect the interests of city people, China came up with all kinds of discriminatory laws against those workers. For example, the temporary residence permit, 暂住证 system. A worker needed a legal lease agreement, an employment letter, and had to pay a city capacity fee or management fee to the local police station. Back then, this money was a fortune to them. Only after paying those, they could get a small green or blue card valid for just 6 months. During that time, city police and neighborhood watch groups did regular nighttime checks at train stations, construction sites, and rented rooms. If a worker was caught walking on the streets without this card, or if their card was expired, they were instantly arrested, locked up in detention centers, and deported back to their village on an old green-skin train. There were even cases where workers who were beaten to death inside of detention centers simply because they didn't have that temporary residence permit. Their children faced another war. If they wanted to go to regular public school in the city, they had to pay a massive temporary schooling fee or sponsorship fee. In 1990s, in Beijing and Shanghai, this could cost thousands or even tens of thousands of yuan a semester. For most migrant workers doing hard manual labor, this was equal to half a year's income for the whole family without eating or drinking. If they couldn't afford public school, they had to go to unauthorized migrant children's schools set up by workers themselves. Those schools usually rented abandoned factories or simple shacks. They had no good teachers and terrible facilities. Even if a child managed to finish primary and middle school in the city, the law forces them to go back to their registered birthplace to take the national college entrance exam, 高考, when they turn 15. Because of this, countless children had to become left behind children, separated from their parents and sent back to rural hometowns where they had never truly lived. Healthcare back then was also tied strictly to city residents. Most migrant workers did the hardest and most dangerous jobs like construction, cleaning, and restaurant work, with no formal contracts or protections. If they got sick and went to big hospital, every checkup and medicine had to be paid 100% out of pocket. We had a common saying, one ambulance ride kills a whole year of pig farming. One hospital visit could instantly wipe out a family's entire annual savings. So vast majority of people choose to tough it out with minor illnesses, buying the cheapest painkiller and antibiotics at local pharmacy. To meet the massive healthcare gap of this population, thousands of illegal underground black clinics pop up in the shanty towns and city borders. They were very dirty and dangerous, but they were cheap and asked for no ID. Serve as field hospital for hundreds of millions of workers. Yet, look at China today. Today's China was built on the backs of those 900 million migrant workers, built the second largest economy in the world. They were never a burden to the cities. They were the creator of the Chinese economic miracle. You might ask, 30 years have passed. What happened to those wars? History moves forward. The brutal detention and deportation system was completely destroyed over 20 years ago. Temporary schooling fee or sponsorship fee were banned by law. Today, most Chinese cities have opened their door wide to migrant workers. China took 30 years of painful lessons to understand one thing. If a nation wants to move forward, the pipeline of human mobility must be cleared, not clogged. Of course, in top megacities, educational barriers and invisible ceilings for permanent residents still exist. Those are the walls we must break next. Now, let's take a look back at the immigration debate taking place in America today. The arguments against immigrants time and time again boil down to the exact same thing. 1. Cultural barrier. 2. Straining public resources and stealing jobs. 3. Crime. Isn't this the same old script used by Chinese city people 30 years ago? They didn't change one line, but American public finance is much more transparent. As someone who likes to look at logic and system architecture, let's do some math on the current US immigration policies. Under standard operation, the full process of arresting, detaining, going through court, and finally deporting a person on a charter flight costs ICE an average of $17,000 per person. But now, as government aggressively pushes the policy of mass deportation, requiring the building of huge temporary camps, adding more law enforcement, using the National Guard, and renting fleets of private planes, the math changes. When you add those massive infrastructure costs, experts conservatively estimate the total cost of deporting a single person will jump to between $20,000 and $25,000. Look closer at the daily cost of detention. Traditional ICE detention facility cost taxpayer roughly $166 to $187 per day per person. To handle the massive spike in detainees, the government has started using highly controversial new models. For instance, the new mega facility in Florida, the first state-run facility for federal immigrants, aka Alligator Alcatraz, currently burns through astonishing $850 per day per person. Because of the initial building costs, private air transport, legal fees, and emergency IT support. But what is the hard economic reality? The reality is that the vast majority of undocumented immigrants are actively paying taxes. Even without a legal work permit, millions of undocumented immigrants still have tax taken directly out of their paychecks by employer, meaning their tax flows straight into the government treasury while they can never ask for a refund. Others file voluntarily using the individual taxpayer identification number. Furthermore, simply by living here, they pay 100% of their local sales tax and indirectly pay property tax through their rent. According to the latest data from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy and the Cato Institute, undocumented immigrants contribute an average of about $9,000 per person every single year to federal, state, and local governments. When we debate immigration policies, if Alexander Hamilton was alive today, he would take out his ledger, and his ledger wouldn't lie. Right now, keeping an active, working human being locked up costs taxpayer hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars a day. Yet, if you let them work with their own hands, they contribute nearly $9,000 a year in net taxes to this country. Lately, the Department of Homeland Security is even offering a $3,000 cash incentive on its official app to beg people to self-deport. This proves a fundamental point. Using pure physical force and massive jail to fight a massive natural, economic, and human system makes absolutely no sense in terms of efficiency and logic. And today, we stand here at the Hamilton Grand National Memorial. More than 2 centuries ago, Alexander Hamilton, a young man from Caribbean, arrived in New York. He was an outsider, an immigrant, a child with a foreign accent and no family background. He faced the same arrogant, suspicious looks from the elite politicians of New York. They called him opportunist. They questioned where he came from. But Hamilton answered them with 51 pages of the Federalist Papers and the financial system built from scratch. He proved to the world that an immigrant is not a string on the state. Immigrants are the architects of the state. Whether it was the rural workers who flooded into China's cities 30 years ago, or an undocumented immigrant arriving in America today, the logic of a human being voting with their feet and earning their dignity through sweat is universal. It is the same in every great nation on earth. Thank you for coming, and your support means everything.